Hi, good evening, Jose. Are you there? How are you?
Hi, good evening.
Hello, good evening. All right, so let's begin with today's class, please. Today is going to be a conversation about this new topic that is about trees. It's also a video that we're going to watch, we're going to listen, and we're going to try to understand. All right, I'm going to make this bigger. So, again, let's pay attention, please. If you want, you can take notes. First, you're going to listen to a story, all right, to a legend, to a fable that is about two cities, and they are going to describe something that is happening with these two cities, all right? And you're going to tell me what is the difference and some characteristic about the cities, all right? Are you ready?
Yes.
Okay, good. Let's begin then with the first minute or so. Let's go.
This is the tale of two ancient cities and the trees that determined their destinies. In 3000 BC, Uruk was more densely populated than modern-day New York City. This crowded capital had to continually expand their irrigation system to feed its growing population. 2,500 years later, in Sri Lanka, the city of Anuradhapura had a similar problem. They were also growing constantly, and like Uruk, their city relied heavily on an elaborate irrigation system. As Uruk grew, its farmers began chopping down trees to make space for more crops. In Anuradhapura, however, trees were sacred. Their city housed an offshoot of the Bodhi tree, under which Buddha himself was said to have attained enlightenment. Religious reverence slowed farmers' axes and even led the city to plant additional trees in urban parks. Initially, Uruk's expansion worked well, but without trees to filter their water supply, Uruk's irrigation system became contaminated. Evaporating water left mineral deposits, which rendered the soil too salty for agriculture. Conversely, Anuradhapura's irrigation system was designed to work in concert with the surrounding forest. Their city eventually grew to more than twice Uruk's population, and today, Anuradhapura still cares for a tree planted over 2,000 years ago.
All right, so that's it. I know that it was long. Give me 1 second, please. I'm going to try to make it.
We may
Okay,
think
good. It was long, it was 1 minute and 41 seconds, but that was the introduction to this video. And that introduction was talking about, right, the story of two cities and the differences between the two cities in connection with trees. Let's try to remember, please, Jose. So the first question is going to be, and I'm going to show you this picture too, be sure about that. This one over here. So, do you remember something about these two cities? What can you tell me about this story in general?
Um, the, these two cities is 3000 before Christ, and I'm thinking that the cities was growing up similar. In Anuradhapura, the people start to cut the trees to more space, I think. Um, for that, the water start to evaporation, and then the people plant new trees, and I think that I heard that in this city now we can see trees for more than 150 100 years, I think, maybe.
All right. Okay, so we're going to verify. You were saying that in Anuradhapura is the city in which they were chopping or cutting down the trees, right? We're going to verify that one. Now, these cities, right, have the same, let's say, status, the same problem. In other words, as you were saying, I think you were mentioning that they were growing a lot, right? The population was growing. and they had to make decisions. So what is the difference between Uruk and Anuradhapura with that growing? What is the decision that Uruk took? Sorry. And what is the decision that Anuradhapura made? Do you remember that one? What is the difference between these two cities?
No, I don't remember.
All right, so we're going to go little by little, and we're
Okay.
going to see actually what happened in these two cities to see the difference, all right? I'm going to start playing again in the first part to verify which one is older, all right? And then we're going to see a little difference. So let's play this again, and I'm going to stop now in shorter parts.
Ancient cities and the trees that determined their destinies.
Okay, so here the big difference is going to be how they treated the trees. Here on the left we have Uruk, and on the right we have Anuradhapura, right? Two different cities that made very different decisions. So let's keep going.
In 3000 BC, Uruk was more densely populated than modern-day New York City. This crowded capital had to continually expand their irrigation system to feed its growing population. 2,500 years later, in Sri Lanka, the city of Anuradhapura had a similar problem.
Okay, so I have a question in this part, right? So now we know more or less like what's the period or age for these cities. So which one is older, Jose? Is it Uruk or Anuradhapura?
Uruk.
Uruk, right? So do you remember what was the exact period of time that we were talking about Uruk?
2,500.
Okay, let's verify. Very close, right? It's going to be 3,000, right? The 3,000 before Christ, and this another one. But if you're telling me the difference, you're correct. It's 2,500, the difference of years, right?
Yes.
And this one is going to be 3,000, and the other one is going to be 500. So yes, the difference is correct and good. That is the first part. So we know that Uruk is the oldest city, and then we have Anuradhapura. But we're going to compare these cities from different periods of time to know what decisions they've made once again. So let's keep going from that part over here.
100 years later, in Sri Lanka, the city of Anuradhapura had a similar problem. They were also growing constantly.
Okay, so that's important to make that clear. So here, the biggest problem for both cities is that they are growing constantly. The population is increasing a lot, so they need to make some decisions. Let's pay attention to those decisions.
Okay.
And like Uruk, their city relied heavily on an elaborate irrigation system. As Uruk grew, its farmers began chopping down trees to make space for more crops. In Anuradhapura,
Okay, so what were people in Uruk doing, Jose, for that growing population?
Began shopping trees.
Correct, exactly. So they were chopping right down the trees. They were cutting down the trees. So that's the decision that Uruk made, right? So we're going to see if Anuradhapura did the same. Let's listen now.
trees to make space for more crops. In Anuradhapura, however, trees were sacred. Their city housed an offshoot of the Bodhi tree, under which Buddha himself was said to have attained enlightenment. Religious reverence slowed farmers' axes and even led the city to plant additional trees in urban parks.
Okay, and what about now? What do you think, or what can you tell me about Anuradhapura in contrast to Uruk?
Cut down trees. So the trees in Anuradhapura were like I don't know how to say, a benediction maybe.
Okay, we're close to that one. So if they are like, instead of that word, you can say sacred. If they are sacred, right, and you cannot touch the trees because the trees are important, what is the big difference then? That in Uruk, they were just simply chopping down the trees, but
Yes.
in In Anuradhapura, we have a very important word here. That's the word I'm telling you over here. Sorry, it's over here, right? Trees were sacred, right?
Sacred.
How can you explain that word? What is something sacred for you, Jose?
Like their God.
Okay, it could be related to God, could be related to something important in a religious way, right?
Yeah.
Something that you cannot touch, something that you cannot simply cut, right? Trees are sacred because they are important, because they are protected by their religion, by their deity, their God, right? And also, not only were the trees sacred, but also they were doing something else. Can you read what we have over here, please, Jose?
And even led the city to plant additional trees in urban parks.
There you go. So they were not only right protecting the trees, but they were also planting additional trees, right? So it's very different. Uruk, right? In Uruk, they were chopping down the trees, they were cutting down the trees. But in Anuradhapura, they were protecting the trees, they were planting additional trees. So it's a very different situation, right? So until this part, what do you think is going to be the result for these decisions, Jose? If you remember, what was the result for these decisions?
Mm, plant more trees, maybe.
Okay, yes, that's something that in Anuradhapura they were doing, right? But what do you think is the outcome, the final decision? What do you think that happened at the end to Uruk, and what happened at the end to Anuradhapura?
Um, Uruk
You
must.
were remember you were saying something about the water was evaporated and so on. In which city was happening that? Was that happening in Uruk or in Anuradhapura?
In Uruk.
Uruk, right? And what was the city that had that tree that was almost 2,000 years old?
In Anuradhapura.
Anuradhapura, right? So in context, right, in as a result, we can say that if we read this, Uruk's irrigation system became contaminated. Then, right, the soil be rendered too salty for agriculture, so you couldn't work with agriculture there. Also, sorry, there is one more thing. Evaporating water, right? So the water was being evaporated. The soil was too salty. They couldn't work with agriculture. In all, Uruk was a disaster, right? And that city couldn't progress anymore, right? Uruk was a failure. But contrary to that, right? Conversely means contrary, opposite to that. In Anuradhapura, right, the irrigation system with water was designed to work, and everything was working very good. And this is what you were saying at the end, right? Anuradhapura still cares for a tree planted over 2,000 years ago, right? Which is, of course, success. So to finish now, Jose, please, let's try to work on a final summary about the two cities. Try to explain one more time with your own words, and we finish the conversation.
Okay. Um, Uruk is 3,000 years before Christ. So they cut down the trees, and the water was being evaporated to make a mineral. And in Uradapura, people take the trees like I don't know, like a benediction. Mm, so that's the difference.
Okay, and at the end, right, the results were they are very different. All right, so good. Instead of that word, try it with B. Try to say instead of a benediction, you can say a blessing. Okay,
Blessing.
a blessing, or you can say that they were simply sacred. Right? Good. Good,
Okay.
that's it. Do you have any final questions to finish today's practice? Let me know, please, Jose.
No, I don't have.
Okay, good. Let's please fill out this survey as always, and as soon as you do it, you may leave the class, all right? Thanks for being here, and I'll see you tomorrow in class, Jose.
Okay, see you tomorrow.
Great, bye-bye.
Bye bye.
All right. And in the meantime, please, I see you there, David. Let's begin the conversation with you. Are you there? Hello, David. Can you hear me?
Yes. Sorry, teacher. I was with the volume down.
All right, don't worry. Good. It's great that you're here. Thanks for waiting. I know that you've been waiting for some minutes, but we're going to start now. Again, we're going to be working with this. This is a new video. This is a new topic, and it's related to trees. This is the title of this video, David. What happens if you cut down all of a city's trees? Before watching the video, let's try to answer this question, David, with your knowledge. What do you think that it happens when you cut down all of a city's trees, David? What do you think?
I think the first thing that would happen if we cut all the trees is that maybe the temperature of the city will increase, and maybe there will be less food in the city, I think.
Okay, good. So those are two possible things that you know, perhaps right in a certain way, that could happen if we cut all of the trees down, right? Good. Now we're going to try to compare what you're saying, because of course I'm not going to tell you it's correct or not correct, but we're going to watch this video because they are going to show us a story, right, between two cities and how they treated the trees and the result of treating the trees in that certain way. So I'm going to put this in full screen. Let's pay attention. This time, this is the introduction of that story, David, is 1 minute and 40 seconds. But I'm going to stop every 10, 15, or 20 seconds to ask you some questions. All right, so let's try to take some notes, and I'm going to be asking you some questions. Are you ready to start? Let me know, please.
Yes, teacher.
Okay, good. Let's begin then.
This is the tale of two ancient cities and the trees that determined their destinies. In 3000 BC, Uruk was more densely populated than modern-day New York City. This crowded capital had to continually expand their irrigation system to feed its growing population. 2,500 years later, in Sri Lanka, the city of Anuradhapura had a similar problem. They were also growing constantly, and like Uruk, their city relied heavily on an elaborate irrigation system.
All right, so that's the first part of the introduction, David. Let's try to answer these questions, please. First, try to tell me if you remember the names of these two cities. Second, try to tell me which one is the oldest, all right, among these two, which one is the oldest. And third, what is the problem? They have a common problem, right, in general. What do you say, David? How can you answer those questions?
Okay. I think the first city and also the oldest is Uruk, and the second city and the youngest is I'm not sure if is the name is Anuradak or something like that. Yes,
Good.
and the problem or the first thing that the video is talking about is that the both cities increases in their population, and they were having a different kind of irrigation systems, I think.
Okay, that was perfect. Very good. Only one little detail, but again, it's because this is not English, right? It's the name of the city. The name, so it's going to be Anuradhapura, right? It was very close. So we have these two cities, right? Uruk and Anuradhapura. Correct. Everything else was perfect, David. Uruk is the oldest, right? 3,000 years before Christ. And Anuradhapura, right, is the newest, which only 500 years before Christ, right? So these are the two cities. And yes, you're right. The main and the common problem that these two cities have is that they are with a constant growing population, and both of these cities, they rely on their irrigation systems, right? And we're talking about water and how water is distributed and so on and so forth. Good. So we are very good so far. Let's continue, and we're going to see what these cities did with that common problem, which is the growing population. All right, so let's keep going.
Capital had to continually expand their crowded capital had to continually expand their irrigation system to feed its growth. And like Uruk, their system. As Uruk grew, its farmers began chopping down trees to make space for more crops. In Anuradhapura, however, trees were sacred. Their city housed an offshoot of the Bodhi tree, under which Buddha himself was said to have attained enlightenment. Religious reverence slowed farmers' axes and even led the city to plant additional trees in urban parks.
All right, so this is the second part. Here we were able to know and to learn what Uruk and Anuradhapura did, right, facing that problem of the growing population. So what can you tell me about the main difference between the decisions that these two cities made, David?
Okay, I think there is a difference in the behavior of the people against the problem. The people in Uruk cut the trees in order to make more space to commerce, I think. And the people in Anuradhapura, they believe that the trees are sacred. Also, they have a religion related to the trees and the Buddhism, I think. So
Okay.
they take care of the trees.
Okay, good, very good. There's only two things that are one, it's like a little bit different, but I agree with everything except for that part. And in the last part, only one question, David. What is the consequence of having the trees as sacred? They were protecting the trees, but there's one other positive thing that happened because they were protecting the trees. Do you remember what else did these people do to show that they really protect and care for the trees?
I didn't understand the whole idea, but I think there is something related to the how, I don't know how to say los cultivos.
Okay, you can call that only the soil, the agriculture, the crops.
The culture, I think I would say that word.
Okay, so let's try to check. I'm going to turn on the captions and we're going to verify two things only, all right? First, we're going to verify what's the reason of Uruks cutting down the trees. You were saying it was because of commerce, but let's check, all right? That's the first thing we're going to check. I'm turning on the captions and I'm going back to Uruks over here. So this is actually the word that I was telling you also, right? The crops, because the crops are related to the agriculture, the food, in other words, right? So in Uruk, yes, the farmers began chopping down the trees, not because of commerce, but to make more space for crops. And crops is the way you use, again, the land to cultivate right? Something to grow some food, to work with agriculture, right? And to feed the people in the city, right? So more than commerce, in this case, it was to have more space to work with agriculture and to grow food, right? So I think it looks very important, but that's the decision that they made. And well, it had a consequence, and we're going to learn about that. And here, yes, you were saying that correctly and very well. The trees were sacred. It was related to Buddhism, and it was believed that even Buddha, right, received the enlightenment next to one of those trees. That's why they were sacred, right here, under which Buddha himself was said to have attained enlightenment. Okay, that's the maximum knowledge that you may have, and so on and so forth. So good. Buddhism was involved in the decision, right, of making the trees sacred. However, there's one positive thing, because I'm not going to say that just because it's religion is positive, of course not. But the positive thing about protecting the trees and being sacred is this one here. Let's read this over here, please, David.
Okay. And even led the city to plant additional trees in urban parks.
Okay, thank you very much. So it means that as a consequence of making those sacred, it was not only the thing that they were protecting the trees, but they were planting additional trees. And of course, that's very positive because the outcome, right, of that decision is going to be very noticeable. I'm going to play just this last part to see what happened with the two cities. You give me a short summary and we finish with that. All right. So let's play, please, the last seconds over here.
And even led the city to plant additional trees in urban parks. Initially, Uruk's expansion worked well, but without trees to filter their water supply, Uruk's irrigation system became contaminated. Evaporating water left mineral deposits, which rendered the soil too salty for agriculture. Conversely, Anuradhapura's irrigation system was designed to work in concert with the surrounding forest. Their city eventually grew to more than twice Uruk's population, and today, Anuradhapura still cares for a tree planted over 2,000 years ago.
Okay, that. All right. And to have this as the conclusion of this conversation, what can you tell me in summary, all right, of the results of making those decisions, right? Uruk cutting down the trees and Anuradhapura protecting the trees and planting extra trees. So what is the result of those decisions, David?
Okay. And in the initially the system of the Uruk worked well, but when they cut the trees, their irrigation system has no filters, and the trees work as filters to eliminate some minerals and salts from the ground. So the water was evaporated, and then all the water disappeared from the city. And on the other hand, the Anuradhapura system was designed to work with the forest, with the trees. So the city grew in population, and nowadays we have millennium trees. I think that's what the video says.
Okay, thank you very much. I think that's perfect. Now, this is what we're going to do. We're going to use this information on Thursday, and we're going to have a conversation and a debate, all right? If you want, you can look for extra information about trees, David. You can tell me what are the benefits of having trees in cities and what happens, right, if we cut down all the trees in a city. You can do some research because on Thursday, again, with this information, we're going to watch only 1 more minute from this video, and then we're going to try to have, again, some questions to see how beneficial is to have some trees and what are some possible solutions in case that we don't have some. All right?
Okay, teacher.
Good. Let's do that, please. Now, let's finish by completing this survey, you must be able to see the survey in the bar tool. Try to complete that, please, David, and you may leave the class when you do it.
Okay, teacher, that's done.
Okay, very good. And if you have any questions, just let me know, or final comments. Is everything clear?
No, it's totally clear, teacher.
Okay, that's good. Thanks for being in this conversation. I'll see you tomorrow in class. Have a good night.
Okay, bye, teacher.
Bye-bye. Take care. Hello, Camila, are you there?
Hello, how are you?
I'm fine. What about you? Is everything okay?
Yeah, fine too, with some homework, but fine.
Okay, that's good to know, Camila. So, Camila, in what course are you?
I am in course. I don't know the name.
Okay, you don't know the name, but are you part of the TOEFL preparation course?
Oh yes, yes.
Okay.
From 16. I started at 16.
Okay. Okay,
Yes,
okay, good, Camila. That's enough. No, it's great. It's great. So, what is the score that you're aiming on the TOEFL, Camila?
100, but maybe a 90 is okay.
Okay, good. So I'm asking that, try to know more or less what's the level you want to get and how can I help you a little bit, all right? So good, 90, but 100 is the one that you would like to get, all right? Why do you want to take the TOEFL? Where do you want to go, or what do you want to do?
It wasn't a decision for mine. It wasn't my decision. I am the UPB University, so they take the English exam so they can know what grade you are. So I took the exam and they took me to the last grade, the advanced. So they prepared to the TOEFL test. So now I'm preparing it for that. So
okay, good. It's because of your studies, right? Because of your university and because you need to take this. Okay,
yeah,
good.
but I wasn't ready. I quite understand why my score was high, because I know I didn't practice a lot of English. So now it's a little bit difficult to me to this exam and to get a good score.
Okay, okay. So how much time do you have to practice now?
This month, the 27th is the day that I take the exam.
Okay, okay, good. I want to know more about that. What do you feel that is your weakness, or what do you feel that you need to work with English? What do you think is the weakest part that you have?
The writing part and the speaking also. Yes, those are the two parts that cost me a lot.
Okay, okay. It's harder for you, right? What do you say about the speaking? What do you feel difficult about the speaking?
Sometimes I can explain myself, or I confuse the tenses when I explain something.
All right, let's try to test that. I'm going to ask you again more questions, but this time I want to evaluate how you work with tenses, as you're saying. Let's try to answer this question, Camila. This is going to be about past, let's say. I want you to tell me a story and actually an experience. Tell me an experience that you remember very well, Camila. It can be a good or a bad experience that you remember. What do you say?
Okay. I used to practice in the band, school band, with my other friends. I also play something with drums. I couldn't say the name. I don't know how to say it, but I used to play with my friends. They teach me how to play it. I also made some videos to practice, and it was a really fun part, a really fun time in my last, my before the pandemic. So I really passed a great time with all the music, all the attention that you have when you talk, when you play. And we also went to concurses. We won the third place, but it was also fun. So that's also they gave me a uniform that I still I still have it. So it's a really I think really fun time for me in school. It was a really fun time for school.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Great. I think it was very good. There were only like 3 words. All right. Again, if you don't remember the word in Spanish, it's better if you don't make that notice. And you can use a similar word. Only say percussion or drums or
Yeah.
something like that, right? You can say, and I played some percussion, and that's it. All right. It's better because also it's going to be a good thing to know not to make examiner, and because also you want to show yourself more like secure and sure. Good. The other one, remember the word is going to be contest, right? You went to a contest, you didn't, right? You didn't win that contest, you were second or third place, but it didn't matter, right? It was a fine time for you. So a contest. And also only one word was not conjugated correctly in the past, that was teach, right? So instead of teach, what is the past, the simple past of teach? Do you remember?
No.
All right, it's going to be taught. I'm going to send that to the chat. All right, give me a second. That one, it's in the chat. All right, taught. So you can say, and my friend taught me, right, this, how to play, how to do this and that. But again, it was very good. You know how to connect your ideas. It's sometimes that you're not sure about it and you feel like insecure, but it's
Yes.
course, right? It's very normal because you are kind of nervous, but little by little, try to be more confident and try to use the words that you know. One big advice that I can give you is that don't try to look for specific words because that's the biggest mistake. When you try to look for specific words, you want to find that word and you forget about all the information and you stop speaking and you again you forget the track that you were following and you say some other words and again everything gets mixed up and again everything gets confused. Instead of trying to find specific words, try to keep your speech simple. Try to use a similar word or a synonym that you remember, or simply if you don't remember, try to change the subject and try to say something else. All right, that's a good thing that you can do in order to keep your speech fluent and in order not to try to look for specific words because again, that's one of the things that is going to keep you away, all right, from being more fluent and from improving your speaking skills. Okay, but that was good. It was good. I have another question. Now, it's similar to that one. I want you to tell me your experience during the pandemic. How was your experience? How you felt yourself during the pandemic? What did you do during that time? Tell me some things, please, about
My experience was at first a little bit difficult. for my family, because my mom got sick from COVID, and my dad also got sick from my mom, and also my brother. So with my sister, we both we take care of them, took care of them, and every week, every day, we have to um take their lunch, their dinner, their medicines, and that part of was difficult. I feel with pressure. Maybe I think by myself, what if I also get um, um, infected? So it was a fear in those moments. So um, at that time it was difficult, but they um, they cure themselves. They get better. They get better, and mm, we start to after that we start to play some games and cook together. So it was a family time difficult.
Okay, okay, thank you very much. Good. I think I didn't have one observation. Everything was very good. You were thinking about that expression, right? It was good, but instead of get, right, I'll change that to got. They got better, right? They healed or they got better, right? And then we started to play some games. But good, good. I think it was great again. I believe that perhaps when you are focused on one tense, you can use that tense properly. I think that you don't have any problems related to that. Only again, the idea of being more like certain, right, being more secure when you're saying the things. But besides that, I think it's very positive. Now, we started a little bit late, so we're going to be a couple of minutes more. All right. This is going to be now plans for the future. I want to see what expressions you use. Try to tell me what are your plans for the future, please, Camila. It can be near future, next year, or it can be a distant future. It could be in 5 years. What are some plans that you got?
Okay, some plans that I was thinking about were that I'm still going to study. No, I'm going to um um
All right, it's okay. Don't worry. You can try to look for those words. If you don't remember those specific words, try to go to the next part or try to explain that differently. All right. It doesn't matter. Later on, you can explain that. All right. Try to keep going with any other ideas that you may have.
Okay, so to finish this year, I want to pass all my classes with a good score. Also, I want to pass the exam of English, the TOEFL, and then I want to take some occasions. I will do some things for myself, like go to the gym or go to a dance class and make my mind more pacific, because now I have so much work. So homework.
Okay, okay, very good, Camila. Great. Now, again, I know that perhaps you also have some other things to do. I'm going to finish with this. It was good in the first part. Again, I know that it feels like frustrating, right? That you want to say something, but you don't know how to say that, or you forgot, and you know that word, but just in the moment, right, in which you're speaking, you forget that word, and it's frustrating, right? But you don't have to let yourself, right, get stuck in that specific moment. Again, when you feel like that, try to go to a different topic and say, well, okay, but actually this year I have something more important that I want to do, and so on and blah, 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 right? So you can make that change. And actually, if you make that decision, even if you're taking a test, people realize that you know and you have strategies for not to stop speaking, and you find ways to continue, right, saying things. And that's very positive, because if you know that it's going to be big mistake to stop speaking, at least in a test, right? In an international test. Try not to do it, but again, try to leave that frustration aside and try to look for different ideas and develop those ideas. And perhaps while you are working with those new ideas, you're going to remember the word and then you can come back, right? But if you don't remember, don't worry at all. Just keep going, and the examiner is just going to focus on the information that you're giving right at that moment, and that's going to be better. All right, it's way better to change the topic or to say a different idea than to stop and try to find that specific word. All right, again, that's one very big thing that you should do. And because besides that, I think you have very good, all right, vocabulary and some words to work on. Just again, try to get out from that idea of getting specific words. I think that's going to be it. I just want to say one last thing, Camila. Well, today we had the conversation, but usually it's not going to be possible to have a conversation with me. Why? Because I spend this time with only the class that I have, that is the A10. All right, in the executive English class, I'm with one course that is the A10 and the other one that is the A14. I believe that perhaps you're going to contact, I don't know if you know Ruth. She's the coordinator. If you don't know her, I'm going to contact Ruth, and perhaps she's going to tell the coordinator of the TOEFL preparation course, because you should have the conversation with your specific teacher. Do you know what's your teacher's name, Camila, or your professor's name?
Yes. Was I already have here Andrea de la Torre.
Okay, good. So don't worry. Again, we had the conversation today, but perhaps later on they're going to tell you that you're going to need to take or to have that conversation with a specific teacher. I imagine that is going to be with only your teacher. If not, they are going to contact you and they are going to tell you which teacher is going to be available for that. All right. Just to let you know, because again, they told me that I have to have these conversations with specific people, but don't worry. Again, it's that now I didn't have a student, but I'm going to contact again Ruth so that you can see what's going to be the teacher you're going to have conversations with. All right?
Okay.
Okay, good. Great. Again, I hope that at least this conversation was helpful for you, Camila. Again, my biggest advice is try to do that. Instead of looking for specific words or specific information, try to change the topic or try to look for a different idea. Later on, you can come back or simply go on. And you have to show that you have those skills to continue going, even though you don't remember some words. That is completely normal because this is not a native language, right? Do you have any final questions or comments to finish, Camila? Let me know, please.
No, I think no.
Okay, good. Thank you for being here. All right. Thank you for having this conversation with me. Try to keep practicing. All right. Don't be afraid of making mistakes. The contrary to that, make those mistakes here. All right. Because the teachers are going to help you improve. Don't be afraid again of doing it. And that's it. It was nice meeting you. I hope you have a great night. And I hope I can see you and have a conversation with you soon, Camila. Bye-bye. Take care.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.
Goodbye.